Welcome to another edition of the Rich Varney Show, guys, and I have an exciting show for you today. This podcast, guys, is all about the state of the market. So we're going to be talking real numbers. We're going to be talking to you about houses that have sold this year compared to last year. We're going to break down our views of what we think the market's, how the market's reacting at the moment, and numerous other things, all about the real estate market, all about coming to Mexico, buying real estate, you know, what you have to deal with nowadays, because things have changed. Yes, I'm live. Yes, I am in person, and I have a person next to me. So it's quite interesting because I've been doing all my episodes so far on the Rich Varney Show, via Skype or Zoom or whatever. Thomas Hellyer is my broker here at Chapala Realtors, and it's a real pleasure to be working out of this office. Really love this office. And I said to Thomas the other day, I said, Thomas, I've been really thinking about how things have been shifting recently and how the markets have been, we've been talking a lot about how the markets have been reacting. And when you're in sales, you constantly, and customer service facing jobs like real estate, for instance, you're constantly thinking about how the market's shifting in and out. And we know very much how the market's reacting just by looking at numbers. I mean, it really tells us from month to month. Normally, we don't go any kind of deeper than that, but from month to month, where are we compared to the previous years in sales and, in askings, listing prices, and asking per accepted price, can't talk today, and everything else around that, number of properties sold, who are buying, who are selling, demographics of that, and because we're in a really interesting market, as you know, guys, in Ajijic, we are predominantly serving Americans, Canadians, a few Europeans chucked in for good measure, and now with the growing strength of the Mexican market, which is great to see. I always like to see the nationals really getting involved in the play down here as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Thomas. I've been trying to get him on the podcast, I have to say, guys, for some time. So much for eventually coming on to the Rich Varney Show to talk about the real estate market. Are we in a crash? Are we in a recession? Or are we... What's happening with the market? Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you very much. I'm not always a fan of being in front of the camera, but I think it's important now to talk about how things really are here in the area and get that message out. So I'm happy to help Rich go over these things. This is my full-time profession, to be the broker of Chapala Realtors. I've been in the business here for 12 years, and I'm an analytical numbers guy. I follow economics, I follow sociology, I follow politics, because it affects how our business is going, and I like it anyway. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I'm looking forward to having this discussion, and I'll also be working with Rich to help answer the questions and such that come up out of this podcast.
Great, Thomas. I mean, I've got some great questions down here, guys. We've done a bit of research for today, so we really wanted to give you some solid numbers. I did promise this podcast on my last video saying that we're going to do it. This is it. This is what I promised. We're delivering, guys. So if you, just right off the bat, guys, if you are new to the podcast, you're watching this on YouTube, but you can also listen to this on Stitcher, and I'll leave a link in the description. Go on to Stitcher, leave a 5-star rating if you don't mind, and leave a comment. And because the podcast is just getting a little bit of traction. My channel now is getting plenty of traction because of you guys for listening and watching. So thank you all for that. Really appreciate all your support, subscribing, viewing all your views, all your comments. Really, really much appreciated, guys. So remember to check out you can see it on Stitcher, or you can listen to it on Spotify, on Google Podcasts. Anyway, guys, help me get the kind of podcast up and going. Thomas, let's begin with one of those the tough questions that everyone's asking. It's on the lips of everyone in the business, people buying real estate, people not buying real estate. People just like to talk about real estate. Are we in a market crash?
Well, it all depends how you define crash, but has real estate sales halted? No. Are they down? Yes. We'll go over the exact numbers here in a bit. And we all know the reasons why. In our case specifically, people aren't getting on planes. Most of our buyers come from somewhere else. And at this point, most of us are not comfortable getting on a plane. So you take that out of the equation, and clearly we're going to have fewer sales now than we did pre-COVID. But crash, it's not. It's not a crash.
That's good to hear.
A number of facets for the market. We're not just foreign retirees. Yeah. It's not the only part of the market. So, well, it means we have. We're not relying on only one source.
There's more strings to the bow. Mm-hmm. You know, there's more opportunities to make sales to different demographics of people.
Yeah, I mean, like, so we don't have the new first-time buyers getting on planes and coming down right now. That's what has essentially stopped. It hasn't disappeared, but it's down significantly. So who are buying the properties we're selling right now? Because we still are selling at a lower pace, but we're definitely selling. We're selling to people that were already here in the area and maybe moving to a different part of town, upsizing, downsizing, and then we have, young professionals that are buying their first home. And we also have the second largest city of Mexico, 7 million people or so in the Guadalajara metropolitan area. So the folks that aren't coming on the planes, they're not buying, but the rest of our regular sales activities is proceeding basically as normal.
Interesting. To give you an idea, so what Thomas is saying, because we're not getting people on the planes, and would you say 50% of the business that we receive down here, when things are working normally, when things are, there's not COVID-19, it's not a pandemic, it's not, there's no fear of flying, we probably get, I would say, by at least a third, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's... this is a destination area. People come here from somewhere else to live. So I don't know the exact percentage, but yeah, it could be 50% or maybe even more. And if we're still getting some people flying in. You've sold a couple as well.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I mean,
that have come down since COVID started.
That takes me to the next. Moves on nicely to that question, because we're going to be flying around a bit in this podcast, guys, because we have a lot to cover. When people are flying in still from the US, I've had people fly in from the US, and I've sold them houses. So in the past few months, so people are coming in from the US. For you guys out there thinking, oh, can't I? Yes, you can. It all depends on how do you feel and if you can get a flight, right?
Right, there's fewer flights, and that's everywhere in the world. They've canceled some, but for the most part, anybody that wants to come can. There are no flight restrictions between the US and Mexico or between Canada and Mexico at this time. So if people are bound and determined to get here, they will come.
There you go, guys. I've actually heard people going over, people live in Texas. How about, they come and they walk over the border and then they jump on a plane in Mexico to come down to Mexico, to come down here. So there are means and ways to get over the border.
Well, a lot of people had their plans in place for a long time, and just because of COVID doesn't mean they're not coming here. Some people were waiting until their house sale closed. If it closed on April 15th, they're homeless if they don't come here and finalize their next part of the plan of retiring here into the Chapala area.
Well, that's good to know anyway. It's good to know that people can freely travel still. As of today, today is the 17th of August. Not a market crash. Are we in a recession?
Recession is kind of an economist term.
Yeah.
And a recession is when an overall economy has negative or lower growth than the previous year over a certain period of months. Mexico is technically in a recession right now, and has been since before the COVID. Why they have less growth than they had in 2018 and 2019. That doesn't necessarily affect our real estate market. The US, pre-COVID, and Canada certainly was not in a recession, even though Mexico was. But the market's down, or the economies all across the board are down as well. I don't think anywhere they've officially in North America have they come into an official recession. It's certainly not a depression. I mean, that's a whole nother definition that has not been fulfilled or met in the current economic situation. So we're not in a recession in US or Canada. We are in Mexico. Again, that doesn't necessarily affect, we'll go over that a little bit more too, but that doesn't necessarily affect the Mexican buyers that we normally deal with. And it won't affect the foreign buyers. And we're not in a depression.
So a depression or recession, guys. The market is down, without a doubt. I mean, I was doing some research today, and we can tell by the number comparing. I mean, I did a quick comparison with the archives that we do have here, which we record all from the MLS. And you know, we are down. I would say, you know, from the figures that I came up with, 35% drop in overall sales price from 2019 to this year. So 2019 was probably from January to July was around the what do you say 45 million, 46 million mark, and now we're at around the 30 million mark for 2020. So there's definitely been a 36% drop in people buying houses. You know, that reflects on both the size of the sales price and the number of houses that are being purchased.
Well, yeah, it's not that the sales price is down 36%. It's the sales volume, and in total dollars of sales, and then also, interestingly enough, the total sales is down 36%. Both of those statistics are down 36%. What does that mean, though? It means that, well, the houses that we are selling for essentially the same price, same average price that they were selling in 2019. Okay. So 36% less sales, 36% less dollar volume of sales, but the average sales price is consistent with what it was in 2019.
So the average sales price is holding strong compared to 2019, even though we are in a pandemic.
Correct.
Yeah. Not a market crash, guys. Not a recession. Not a depression.
And we're not seeing
pandemic.
And we're not seeing our prices go down in the price of houses sold.
Yeah.
Which is the ultimate indicator of what the valuation of the market is.
So if house prices drop considerably, that's when we're in a market crash.
Right.
And that hasn't happened yet. As long as people want it to happen.
Yeah, we have people showing up looking for the 50% off deals. That there aren't any.
I want one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing about the sales prices is the holding costs of properties here is so low. You're looking for a $300,000 home. You're looking at property taxes of $300 a year. You're looking at maintenance costs of much less. even if you have a gardener and maid on full time, you're looking at $300 or $400 cost a month to keep a home here. So, you know, back in the States or Canada, you can get into a situation where it's thousands of dollars a month to own a home. You've got to sell that thing at some point. Another thing is, we don't have any foreclosures here. Bank properties here with bank loans are probably less than 5% of the total inventory in the whole Lake Chapala area. So there's
less than 5% of people using bank loans or mortgages to buy property.
So even if we get a protracted economic downturn or recession, we're not going to have foreclosures and bank-owned properties getting dumped onto the market.
That's a big shame.
Well, it helps hold the values.
Well, it does.
We don't have builders that have spec built hundreds of homes. We have lots of new development, but the builders are using their cash. They build a couple homes, they sell them, they build a couple more. So we don't have hundreds of brand new inventory sitting there waiting for someone to buy it.
I see. I mean, being living in Mexico for 10 years, that's how I see contractors build. Even the big ones. Mm-hmm. They don't build 200 or 300 houses and go, okay, how are we going to sell them? They're actually a lot more savvy than that.
And for the most part, they're building them with in-house cash.
With in-house. So people are putting their money down, 10% down, or whatever, and then they're using that money to circulate back into the business.
Right.
Yeah.
And the locals who own most of the land and homes in the area still have a buy and hold mentality.
On land.
And homes.
Yeah.
And that buy and hold mentality isn't necessarily 5 or 10 years. It could be generations. There are homes here that will never go for sale. They're going to be passed on to generation. And so all of that kind of puts a floor in how much your market can fall or your prices can fall. We definitely had a recession here in 2008, and the sales were down for an extended period of time.
I mean, that's great for you to mention that, Thomas, because you were working here in 2000. You've been working here since 2008.
Yeah.
You started best of time for a real estate agent to begin in the business. 2008. Thomas was there.
It was tough.
Tell me, Thomas, how many houses did you sell your first year?
I sold one in all of 2008. Worked full time. It was a lot of fun. A lot of beans and tortillas at the dinner plate at my house.
And how many houses did you sell in 2009?
5.
Yeah. So it picked up. The market picked up. It was one bad year.
500% better sales for me. But no, it was tough here for a few years. But even though there was a huge lack of demand in that time period, prices only came down 15-20%.
Wow. Because of what you're saying. You know, locals hold on to land. Mexican nationals hold on to land, hold on to their houses, even if the market is really bad. They don't have to get out and sell. I think it's a really interesting point, and maybe we could delve a little bit into this. The mentality here, and this is something I noticed coming from England, because in England we have for sure the mentality of we have to use mortgages to buy property. So here in Mexico, what really kind of surprised me when I first come here is that a lot of people buy land to begin with, then after paying off the land, say 5 or 6 years, they've paid off the land, then they gradually build their house. And it may take them 5, 10 years to do everything. But in the end of it, they don't really owe that much money on their house unless they had to borrow a little bit for the construction.
Or none.
Or none.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't that just a great way of I mean, because in England we are so, and in the US, I'm sure, guys, and in Canada, we're so reliant on bank loans, and even though the interest rates are low, and you can hold it, and you can make good a nice amount of what's the word? Equity in your home. At the end of the day, you're indebted until you sell that thing. Whatever happens, you're indebted.
A lot of young Mexican men won't propose to their girlfriend until they've built their house. And then they go right into their marriage debt-free and own a home.
It's a lot less stress not having a mortgage.
Yeah.
It's a lot less stress, yeah.
As opposed to in the States, you graduate from college with $50,000, $100,000 in debt and then buy a house with 10% down.
And you're in like $400,000 worth of debt when you're 25.
And then when the economy shifts on you, what do you do?
Yeah.
Pretty
Pretty scary stuff. However, in the past 10 years, I have seen that loans have become a lot more available. I mean, have become a lot more friendly. The banks have become a lot more here in Mexico in the past 10 years. And as long as you can cover all the criterias of a bank, and we've done a video, I did a video, remember, on getting mortgages here in Mexico. As long as you can show that, if you want to buy a house, you've got maybe 25% to put down, and then at the end of it, you're still going to need about 30,000, between 20 to 30,000 pesos if you're going to get a half decent house to pay in mortgage payments each month. A lot of people don't have that extra money here. Then people aren't earning that kind of money here, particularly the.
But again, it's just not a part of our market anyway.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Because we haven't had one closing this year where the buyer was using Mexican bank credit.
I've done one, just one.
This year?
Not this year, no. Last year.
Yeah, so it's very rare in our market.
Yeah.
It's not a big part of it. Some personal loans, private loans, different things like that, but seller financing. Perhaps, but
let's talk about inventory. What's happening with the inventory on the MLS? If you don't already know, guys, we use MLS multi-listing system website. It's a bit aged, but it does a job. It fits its purpose, and we all use it, and it works just fine. And it on the MLS. If you're ever wondering, I'll leave a link in the description down below of the podcast, guys. You can always check it out. I remember when I started. 2018 in the business, and I've been in the business 2 years, guys. And I was tracking how many houses were on the market each month. And what I saw back then is the inventory was pretty low. It was around like 300 houses on average in a year. Right? I think it got up to about 350 max. But now I see that the inventory has jumped quite considerably in residential. We're talking residential real estate, not lots here, guys. Residential real estate, I mean, I think we're up above 450 at the moment.
No, it's 417.
Ooh, 417? Yeah. Oh, okay, so it's gone back down since the last time I checked. Sorry.
So in the 2008, 9, 10, we were consistently 556 to 650 in residential properties on the market. That was a lot. It took a long time to sort that through. I think last year we got down to around 350, and at the end of 2018 we were around 380, 390. So we're up about 10% from December 2019 overall inventory. So even though the sales are down 36%, we haven't seen a huge jump in inventory. If the slow time goes on for a longer period, that inventory number is going to keep creeping up for sure. But at this point, we're not seeing any rush or mad rush to put houses on the market. We don't have people fleeing town or the area. And while we've seen an increase, it's a 10% increase, so it hasn't been a big number. We're keeping our eye on it, of course.
But there is a nice selection of homes, guys. So if any of you are still, you've got your dream in place to still come to retire in Mexico, there are still some great houses on the market, and all kinds of houses from super modern to contemporary, contemporary,
more rustic.
Yep. There's a real nice choice of houses. So I don't know about you, but as a seller, as a real estate agent, I like a nice inventory.
Yeah. No, we have a good choice in almost every price point and neighborhood. which is healthy. You want to have enough inventory so the buyers have a good selection, and you want different price points to be covered so that the people with different budgets are able to find an acceptable property. And I think we have that right now, and have for the last few years. It's been a steady, neither weighted to the buyers or the sellers. It's been a stable market that way, and I think it still is today.
So this takes me to the next question. I love this question all the time, and I get it, and I'm sure Thomas knows what's coming. Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market, Thomas? What do you think?
So yeah, I was just kind of covering that without knowing that was the next question, but it's more of a stable market. I think the last 3-4 years we could classify as a bit of a seller's market. With the drop in demand due to COVID, I would say it's equalized some more, and we're probably in a more equal buyers, sellers, stable market.
I'm sure you get asked a lot when you go to listing appointments, and I do too. They ask you all these questions. Is it a seller's or is it a buyer's market? And I actually had I have the same mindset as Thomas. I think the market, it has, it's always in flux, isn't it? But I think at this moment in time, I've seen offers coming in on some of my listings, and they've been declined because the offers were too low. And then someone's thinking, well, isn't it a seller's market? Can't we get these good deals? I think you can still get good deals, but when a house is priced right, in the right neighborhood, for the right neighborhood, should we say, it normally doesn't go that much below listing.
And it sells generally fairly quickly.
And
overpriced homes will sit there. And so those are signs of an efficient market where good priced homes sell relatively quickly, low priced homes sell almost immediately, and higher priced homes will sit until either the price comes down or the buyer or the market comes up to it.
Just here, guys, I'm just looking at my little pad as Thomas is talking. And, you may ask another frequent question we get all the time, days on the market. How long does a house stay on the market? And I could say, back in January, the average, we work on the averages here, right? The average days on the market for a house in January 2019 was 168 days. Well, this January, the average price for the average time for a house was 87 days. So actually, houses were moving a lot quicker. If we compare that to right in the midst of the COVID, houses, say July or June. Let's say June, because that was right in the mid of the COVID, as we were all at home at that point, right? Just before that. So days on the market, 2019 last year. And this year, right in the midst of the COVID, 239. Not a lot of difference.
No. We have a lot of unique homes, and we have some areas that are less popular than others. And in some of those unique homes that need fixing up, that have way too many stairs and such, they might sit on the market for a couple of years, right? In some of the more out-of-town areas. So days on the market isn't a hugely relevant indicator of an individual home's what's the word I'm looking for? An individual home's attractiveness or whatnot. Some homes just take a little bit longer to sell. Some homes we sell in a couple of weeks, but it's interesting to see how the changes there haven't been that much change in days on the market as over the last 9 months.
I'm quite surprised when I pulled up this data. I'm quite surprised with what it tells me. And we're talking about demographics, and I'm curious about demographics. I know we've touched on it right at the beginning of the podcast, and what I'm seeing. I don't know about you, Thomas. Actually, we have spoke about it, so I do know what Thomas is thinking somewhat as well before I even ask this question. But I'm seeing that there are more Mexican buyers at the moment on the market, and this is a really interesting transition because checking the records going back a couple of years, there've always been more American and Canadian buyers, and so. But what I'm seeing now here with the numbers is that the Mexicans are getting more involved into this area, which is lovely to see. And maybe they're realizing, it's one of the best kept secrets of this of Jalisco and Mexico. And why do you think that is, Thomas?
I think there's a few factors. This is a question that I really enjoy pondering about. First of all, from a big picture, I find it absolutely fascinating that an area this nice, with a big lake, with a great climate, with all kinds of great restaurants and shops and schools, and thank God it didn't happen, but if this was anywhere in the States or Canada, Lake Chapala would have been swallowed up by Guadalajara 30, 40 years ago.
You mean it would be basically part of Guadalajara?
Being just an hour away from a major metropolitan area? Absolutely. To say that Guadalajara hasn't grown and come out and taken over its suburbs, if you will. But Chapala was never seen as an area that you would even consider commuting from. Culturally, Mexicans always preferred to live close to their work, go home for siesta for a couple hours and go back to work. And that's was the acceptable way of doing things. Well, times have changed. Most of the big companies in Guadalajara are international companies, and they lay people off, and people get headhunted, and they're moving jobs here, and they're spending only 5 years at this job, and they're moving over here.
That wasn't happening before.
It wasn't happening before. So now people aren't tied to living in one neighborhood as they would have been in previous generations. And they're already commuting within the city, some of them over an hour. So we are finally getting people that are saying, look, I don't want to commute in the city and live in the city. I'll even consider living in a place like Chapala, where I've got good schools, good hospitals, cost of living, clean air, no smog, and my family can grow up here, and I'll drive into work, wherever work is. If work's on the west end of town or the north end of town, doesn't matter. I'm just going to be driving in. So we're getting some of that. We are seeing a saturation of investment in Puerto Vallarta and some of the other tourist areas that Mexicans frequent, such as Mazamitla and Tapalpa, where there was so much investment from Guadalajara, Mexico City over the last 10, 20 years that the costs have gone way up.
I hear the same thing has happened in San Miguel de Allende as well.
Right. So we're getting some of the investment coming into Chapala that wasn't coming before. And third, Mexicans have always preferred real estate as the primary investment vehicle for long-term investments.
That goes back. I mean, not to interrupt, but that's cultural.
That's a cultural phenomena.
Yeah.
They don't trust the peso as a way to hold their savings or their investments. And this is a time where Mexicans, because of the exchange rate, because of the stronger dollar, Mexicans are looking to get their money out of the banks and into tangible real estate assets. And we're seeing
into something they can touch.
They can touch, they can live in, it will go up in value.
Yeah.
And they don't need the liquidity. They prefer to have the tangible asset. So we have a strong base market, regardless of what our retirement market from the US and Canada and other parts of the world does, just from Guadalajara. And that sets a floor on the value of the land and the homes here.
So do you see that the markets will eventually get, the Mexican buyers will end up with a lot bigger demographic of buyers and sellers compared to the Americans that we have in the market.
That could happen. I don't see it being something that in the next 5 years. It could be more in the 10 to 20 year time frame. I think I would actually expect that. But short term, no. But they're going to be a growing part of the market and in a large part of the investment and development of the market. But but beyond just the Mexicans, we have good long-term demand prospects for the foreign clients as well.
Yeah.
And right now, it's a latent demand, latent or delayed because they're not getting on planes. But the reasons people were coming here before have not changed because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
In some cases, I think the reasons that people will make the final decision to move here may have even increased. So let's have a review. The baby boomers are still baby booming.
They're still. I think it's the tail end of the. I like
we're right
to read
in the
a bit
middle
about
of it.
demographics.
I think we're right in the middle of it.
Okay, the middle of the baby boom is still anywhere from, I think it was 75 years old to 55, right? Now.
About that, yeah.
Yeah. That 20-year kind of section.
So you still have a huge amount of baby boomers retiring at any given time, and beyond that, what's been happening as companies have gone through this pandemic, they're buying people out, the golden parachute, if you will. That's happening more often. They're also realizing people can work from home. So they're decentralizing, they're cutting down on office space, in which means people are free to work from anywhere in the world. So that demand hasn't changed at all. The lower cost of living, that is a reason, one of the main reasons that people come here, that's still a reason that people will look here. And now so, with many people having taken a financial hit in the businesses that they own, or maybe in their investments or whatnot, there may be even a more acute need to find a place where you can live, where your cost of living is lower, but you can still maintain a high quality of life. This area had that before the pandemic. We still have it now. There may be more people wanting or needing that. Climate's still great here. It's still going to be cold and crappy in the north most of the year. There's still a subset of folks, particularly baby boomers, that are looking for the adventure of moving to a new country. That hasn't changed. And I'm talking about culture and language, somewhere new, something different. People haven't changed that because of the pandemic. They're putting it off. So the demands that we've always had for people coming to live here have just been delayed. When people are comfortable traveling, when people are comfortable moving on with their plans that they've had for retiring and whatnot, the demand will pick up. Big question is how long, and this is, we don't know, nobody knows. The schools don't know, the governments don't know, the businesses don't know, we don't know, is how long is this situation where people shouldn't travel as much, whether it's by doctor's order because of other conditions or whatnot, or just because it doesn't make sense to travel. How long that we shouldn't be moving around and doing things in different places. And that's going to affect the demand here, and it will affect the supply.
Short
at
term.
some point.
Short term.
Well, if this goes on for 2 years, now what does that mean?
It's midterm.
Right? So right now, we've seen the numbers, we've analyzed them, we've shared them. Things still look pretty good, other than the fact that sales are down quite a bit.
Everywhere else.
If in November people start traveling again and feel comfortable about things, I think we'll be right back up where we were. perhaps even more because of the people that have been waiting.
We'll make up for it. Yeah, I mean, the conversations I have, just to continue with what Thomas is saying, the conversations I have with clients over the phone in the States, there's a lot of people that are, I mean, people I talk to, they're really into coming, but they have to wait for a moment, sell their properties in the US, and then make their way down. But I still get the feel from the conversations I have, the real-time conversations I have. There are people wanting to come to Mexico, still wanting to come and live here. They see all the benefits, what Thomas is talking about.
I'm going to throw two things on the table that will possibly make for a market crash in this area in the future.
Okay.
One, most of our clients still come from US or Canada, and most of them that come must sell their primary residence before they buy a house here.
Yeah.
If the real estate markets in the US and Canada go into a crash, we will eventually go into a crash here. It won't, it's always a delayed reaction. That has yet to happen. The U.S. market for real estate has tended to, so far as I know, during this COVID time, has stayed very strong. There's all kinds of debates you can have on what the economy is going to do in the U.S. Is it being propped up? Is it artificial? Is it going to last? That I'm not going to solve that here. I don't know the answer. But if the U.S. or Canada's real estate market crashes, it will definitely affect the Lake Chapala real estate market in a negative way. The other one is if this pandemic drags on for a long period of time, which will also cut down on our demand, it will eventually begin to soften the prices here, just because there'll be less demand and more supply. And while we don't have foreclosures in bank-owned properties, there's certain points where some sellers must get out of their property now. We haven't seen that yet, but when that happens, that'll soften the price. It will drag the prices down some.
So you'll see a slight market crash. That's what you're talking about, yeah?
Well, again, in 2008, 9, 10, we came down 15-20%.
Not a lot, really.
That's what could happen.
Nothing like the US. I mean, the US went down a lot.
Well, it depends. Some areas, some of the areas that were really super inflated, like Phoenix or Las Vegas, came down 35-40%, maybe even 50%.
Wow, incredible.
But that didn't happen here, and it won't. It'll just slow things down. So those are the two possible factors that could get us to a point where there's a crash here. But both of those are quite a ways out and would have to develop over the next couple of years.
I can't stop noticing that Thomas has brought a bottle of tequila into the podcast today. I think we may have to have a little shot of tequila while we're doing it. Can we have a little shot of tequila?
Yeah. Did you bring any shot glasses?
I didn't. Have you got any in your office?
Of course.
I'll go and get them. Just stay right there, guys. Yeah. There we go. There we go. So just have one because I've got to drive home. But let's have a little tequila.
So this is our special Chapala Realtors distilled tequila. It can be yours. All you have to do is buy a house. It's a reposado, which means it's a slightly aged, been in the barrel for 6 to 18 months. Usually they use oak barrels, and
they're actually old. I've been to a few tequila factories, distilleries, and they actually use they tell you old whiskey and brandy barrels, don't they? Have you heard that? Yeah.
It's very common.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of different ways of changing the flavors or adding to the flavor. This is a sipping tequila, so it's not something you would need or necessarily want to shoot. It's meant to savor the flavor. Don't need any salt or lime. Cheers.
Cheers to everyone. Yeah, it's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Nice.
I feel like a bit like Joe Rogan, where he was always like, he's like smoking pot and drinking on his. Yeah, maybe we're going to be the next kind of Mexican Joe Rogan or something.
Yeah.
Got the haircut for it. We've spoke about many things today. I mean, we talked about are we in a market crash? Are we in a recession? Are we in a depression? We've talked about all these different aspects of the market. We've also talked about the prices. Are they going down? Are they going up? Are they going sideways? We talked about what's happening with the inventory. Who's buying? Who's not buying? The demographics of the new buyers, the possible new buyers coming up in the market.
The other thing that we haven't touched yet, Rich, is discontentment with lifestyle and life in the U.S. and Canada. And it's with the divisive political situation, particularly in the U.S. right now, but there's plenty of that in Canada as well. With the divisiveness in the racial tension that's kind of flared up again, that hasn't been in play for 20, 30 years. There's a lot of people that are less content with life in the US, life in Canada. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the politics or anything are anything better here in Mexico. People being unhappy with politics or unhappy with life in general is ever been a main reason people moved here. But if you ask any of our clients that have moved down here in the last 5 years, I would say a lot of them would mention that as one of the factors, is they just weren't happy with the way things were going back home. And we could see that feeling increase over time up there.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was one of the primary reasons I left England in 2009.
Really?
Because we were in a recession in 2009, and it wasn't the best of times for my wife to be looking for a job in her field of marketing, even though she went to a cracking university and got a great, she's got a master's degree and she's very qualified. But she struggled to get a job in 2019. We came to Mexico in 2019. She got a job the first day she arrived. She still has it, same job. She's had a few promotions since. But people do move because of that reason.
Sure.
It's not. I'm not saying the grass is always greener when you do move, because I have to admit the first few years of me in Mexico was very, very difficult, and learning the language and adapting to a whole different culture and a way of life. It's very different for someone when they come and retire in a country.
Well, and when you come to a community where most everyone speaks English and there's organizations and such set up to support everybody. You and I both moved to Guadalajara when we were young and
I wouldn't say go and retire in Guadalajara, guys. Unless you spoke a little bit of Spanish, you'd be fine. But
anyway, so that's just another factor that's hard to quantify, but could very well be a driver as we go forward in the demand. It's an interesting sociological question of how much that's going to add to people's desire to move out of their home country.
Exactly. I think when people move out, it's very emotional, and a lot of the time it's kind of, cool, maybe the grass is a little bit greener, as long as you water it, I guess. Or some people, just like myself as well, I was looking for the adventure to move out, and Mexico seemed like an event. And the people I talk to that I interact with, they're looking for that little bit of adventure when they come to Mexico. It may not be perfect here, guys, but it's certainly very nice, and it's certainly a lovely place to live. Thomas, thank you so much for eventually coming onto the podcast. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I really respect your point of view. I really respect you as a person, and your knowledge is invaluable. And I'm so happy I have you as a broker, because I test him all the time with questions that he's never heard before, just because I get these really weird deals that I have to kind of put together. And I go, Thomas, help me out. I need some help. And he's always very readily available for me whenever I have a question. So thank you for that.
And that goes back to the beginning in this podcast. We're talking about how everybody's adapting to this new normal, this new world. And that's our business here is to adapt to all the different situations. We have people coming from all over the world. We have sellers from all different situations. And at the end of the day, we're problem solvers. And that's how we've approached the pandemic and COVID and the drop off in people traveling on planes and all of that. We're changing and adapting with the times and taking care of our clients.
If you are new to the channel, guys, please consider subscribing, hit that notification button, and give me a thumbs up. Yes, you are watching the Rich Varney show. And this is my work. This is my work office. So, this is not my usual place, but I quite like it. It's quite a nice place to do a podcast.
We're a conference room, so whenever we have meetings, this is
where
we do it.
They don't see the Rich Varney show because that would be a bit strange, you know. I just put that up there just to do the show. Remember to subscribe, guys. Hit that notification button and give me a thumbs up and tell your friends about it. Share this with your friends. This is on audio, so if you are listening on audio, the audio version without video, then give it, wherever you're listening, Spotify, just remember to subscribe and give me a 5-star rating if you're listening on Stitcher. I think that's the only one you can give a 5-star rating to. So yeah, just Stitcher actually. But you can subscribe to Google Podcast and all the rest of it and download them and share it with your friends and just listen to it on audio version when you go out for a run or a walk. So on that note, I always give the final words. What you got to say, Thomas?
The topic of this podcast is the state of the market. We've given a broad overview of that with some real statistics. Overall, I'm optimistic in the market. I think our demand is still there. It's just on hold. And we'll see how it plays out over the next few months and in the incoming year.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be well worth doing another podcast of this, maybe in a couple of months. Maybe let's do it maybe at the end of the year or even sooner. So if he keeps bringing the tequila, I'll do it whenever he wants. So on that note, guys, but it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we've provided you plenty of real statistical numbers all about the real estate market here in Mexico, Lake Chapala, Ajijic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. It's been a long podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Share it with your friends, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. All the best to you. Adios, amigos.